8BitDo has just released what is probably my favorite controller I have ever used for the Switch. Here's why. Earlier this year, 8BitDo released their ultimate wired controller for Xbox and PC, and when I reviewed that controller, my ultimate takeaway was that I loved so many different things about it, except for the fact that it was a wired controller. Well, fast forward now, and they're releasing a pair of wireless models of this controller. One that is Bluetooth in 2.4, which is I'm holding right here, targeted at Switch and PC, and another 2.4 only option that's targeted at PC and Android. And a trade-off of this is that it's also actually their most expensive controller they've released. Normally, their wireless controllers sit at around $50, making them aggressively priced compared to a lot of official wireless options, whereas this one is $70, putting it at the exact same price point as a first-party Switch Pro controller. And the thing is, it's absolutely worth it. Look, I have reviewed a lot of controller options for the Switch, and I'm going to continue to. I love seeing all the different ways that companies try to find ways to, make an even better controller or an even weirder, more specialized one. It's not something I'm ever going to stop doing, so, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more of this stuff in the future. But really, after all the different controllers I've used and all the different ones I've swapped between, this is my new primary, and it's going to take a lot for another controller to change that for me. First off, the basics. Obviously, this is a Pro controller design that is meant to mimic very similarly to what we see on Switch Pro controllers or even the Xbox controller. The shaping is ever so slightly different and unique to make sure that it is its own brand, but it is one that is extremely comfortable. It has all the buttons you would see on a standard Switch Pro controller, although some of them are labeled a little bit differently. It has its own home style button that has their little heart symbol. It has the star button, which acts as the capture button, and it does not use Switch labeling for its back triggers, going with a more traditional L2 and R2 rather than ZL and ZR. The menu button layout is also designed much more like their Xbox controller, where rather than having the home button and capture buttons being similar to where you would see on a Switch Pro controller, they've been relocated to being like an Xbox controller where the home button is up top and you have a capture button sitting between the plus and minus buttons. There is, of course, this other additional button right here at the bottom. This is for profile switching, so if you choose to make use of its customization software for different button layouts and different sensitivity settings, this button's going to allow you to swap between those profiles. Which, on that note, this does have a pair of remappable back buttons, which are pretty standard on a lot of their Pro controller designs nowadays. There's also a little switch you'll see on the back here, which goes between either the Bluetooth modes, you can just connect directly to your Switch, or you can swap it over to a 2.4 signal that works with a dongle that the controller comes with. Now, part of the reason why this one is more expensive than some of 8BitDo's past controllers is the fact that along with the controller, you also get a bundled-in charge stand. One of the big changes from some past Pro controller designs like the Pro 2 is that those ones offered rechargeable battery packs that you could remove and replace with a pair of AA batteries if you preferred. That's entirely gone in the Ultimate, which is a little bit of a slight against it, in my opinion. I liked having that option before, but the charge stand does give a really easy solution for recharging it. I've never been a big fan of plugging controllers directly into systems to charge them. It's just a very annoying thing. So having a charge stand option where I can have it hooked into a wall nearby or even plugged into the dock and then I can just drop it here is really nice. One additional feature of it, though, that I really love, this is like one of those dumb little things that just gets my neurons firing, is the fact that not only can you charge the controller with it, but the charge base also acts as a place to store the 2.4 dongle. I have so many dongles and have so many little losable parts with all the different controllers that I've covered over the years that it's just, I hate not having a place to store things. So having an actual place in the charge stand to store the dongle is amazing to me. It's a dumb little fine detail, but it's one of my favorite things that they did with this controller. What's even cooler about this, though, is not only is this a place to store the dongle, but it also acts as a USB pass-through. So while this is plugged in and the charger is plugged into your dock, it will both charge your system and count as the wireless transmitter for the 2.4 signal. Now, as far as special features goes, it's pretty much the full list of usual suspects that we've seen on a lot of their Pro designs in the past. You're able to connect this to a computer to use their Ultimate software to customize it, or you can also use an app version of it where it'll connect wirelessly to the controller that you can then customize. And you have a bunch of options. You can remap all the different buttons, not only the remappable ones on the back, but all the front-facing buttons as well. You can do more specific options like swapping the D-pad with the left stick or the right stick with triggers. You can adjust stick sensitivity, the intensity of the vibration motors. You can assign these to up to 3 different profiles that you can swap between using this button right here. It also does come with a turbo functionality because what third-party controllers complete without one. And if you want to get a little more fancy with it and arguably a little more unfair, there is also a macro function so you can have buttons handle more complex executions like doing button inputs for a fighting game, let's say. All of these special features are welcome, but again, they are also things that we've already seen on a lot of their past designs, including the Pro 2. And that's not really what makes this controller special to me. What really really sells this overall package for me is that the list of features combined with the ergonomic design of the controller, the button layout, how everything feels. It's honestly, I think, the best controller I've used on the Switch. The grip is extremely comfortable, the stick and trigger tensions are just the way that I personally like. The front-facing buttons have a good crispness and push distance for rapid pressings in those games that require it. And as with most 8BitDo controllers, the D-pad is amongst one of the best ones out there on the market. The combination of these ergonomics, how the buttons feel, and the list of special features we've seen from before just comes together to what really is my favorite controller I've used. You know, I've talked about a lot of 8BitDo controllers positively in the past, and one of the things that I've talked about in a lot of controller wrap-ups and my long-term experience with them is that I don't really ever fully swap over to them for all games. You know, I've liked using them for a lot of retro-style games because of the quality of the D-pad, but ultimately for a lot of things like 3D action titles, I find myself going back to the Switch Pro controller. And this is actually the one that I think I'm actually fully swapping over. You know, while special feature list is cool, the Pro controller's ergonomics was ultimately the thing that had me keep coming back to it. But now having that on this controller with all the additional special features and a charge stand design that's all brought together in one, I'm just now convinced that this is the main one for me. You know, there are some style of games where I might still swap over to a different, more specialized controller. For instance, fighting games using something that has a 6-button setup and a more pronounced D-pad. But for just general everyday use on the Switch, this is the one now. All that being said, it is worth pointing out there are some things you lose using this controller compared to a traditional Switch Pro controller. First off, the rumble is not the same level of quality. With an official Pro controller, you're getting HD rumble, which can have more refined vibrations for specific games, whereas this has a much more traditional rumble where you can customize the intensity of it, but it's not gonna have that same kind of full range that the official controller offers. And it doesn't have an NFC reader, so if amiibo scanning is still relevant to you, it can't do that, but at the end of the day, you can always grab a Joy-Con for it. And it does still support full motion controls, so you can use those in games that require it as well. The biggest feature loss though, and this is hopefully something that could be fixed with future firmware, is the controller really seems to have a problem with waking the Switch up. I've been able to do it every now and then, but it's been extremely inconsistent, and most of the time, the light just flashes without turning the system on. And for some people, I know this is a big make or break problem. Again though, it does seem to occasionally be able to turn it on, so I think this isn't a situation where it's a permanently locked off feature, but rather something that just isn't really working as intended right now. Ultimately, the biggest problem this controller runs into that I think could impact your choice to buy or not is the fact that it is, again, their most expensive controller. It costs as much as an OEM one versus being something that's cheaper. And I think the quality here deserves that. If you don't already have a Pro controller and you're debating between buying one of those or buying this, I think this is worth picking up. If, however, you're looking to pick up additional controllers and you're not necessarily interested in spending that higher price, then yeah, there's a bunch of wireless and wired options from 8BitDo and other competitors that might be a better fit for you. But if you're looking for a mainline controller to have and you're willing to spend a little bit more, not even a lot more, again, this isn't some kind of triple-digit Pro controller option, it's still relatively on the cheaper side for a third-party solution, I think it's great. So yeah, those are my thoughts on the Ultimate Wireless Controller from 8BitDo. It is now my new main controller on Switch, and it's going to take quite a bit to change me, I think, away from it. If you're interested in grabbing one of these, I do have a link posted down below in the description. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys later.